In a nutshell, DPM, how will you define SkillsFuture?
It's about every Singaporean having the opportunity to develop themselves through life. It's about every enterprise having teams of people who are focused on mastery. It's about us being able to make the most of life together.
I think this perhaps is interesting, or rather encouraging, that the betterment of your own life is a personal responsibility.
Yeah, it underscores that every Singaporean counts.
Yeah, but it sounds like we're working on a sort of cultural change. How long are you giving this scheme to work?
You can't change culture overnight or even in a few years.
Exactly.
But I think Singaporeans by nature like to improve for themselves and their families to do better in life. You've got to make it convenient for them. So it's not just about individuals having to take a big leap on their own, but you've got to make it very convenient for people to learn and to improve. If employers play their role, which means seeing the employees as the key strength of the company, if our educational institutions and the whole array of training providers is developed so that everyone has an opportunity for a high-quality training in the areas they're interested in, I think we have a very good chance of also changing the culture. The culture by itself doesn't change. It's got to be accompanied by quality provisions around them and very supportive employers. It'll take time, but I think we will get there.
DPM, how does SkillsFuture benefit Singaporeans on an individual level?
That's a really good question, because it's meant to, in fact, benefit all of us, everyone. I had a chat recently with someone in her 60s, working as a cleaner. And I told her about the SkillsFuture Credit, and I asked her, what do you think you might want to learn? So she sort of paused for a minute and thought about it. And she said, I want to learn English. And I asked her why. She said, so that I can talk to more people. It's a good example of someone thinking about how their life can become more interesting. It could help her at work as well. So we are trying to reduce the barriers. So whether it's an electrical engineer or cleaner or anyone else, encourage them to think of what's in their own interests and make it easy and convenient. We want to make sure financial considerations are not the barrier. So if you're 40 years or above, you get a 90% subsidy off the cost of the course. And for the remaining 10%, if you've got your SkillsFuture Credit, very highly subsidized. We're trying to make it affordable for people who are mid-career, because we know the real barriers when you're mid-career are your time, your energy, having to spend time on the family. You know, those are very real problems that we all face, learning mid-career.
During my school days, I began to understand that there is a need for me to find out what was my passion. I was taking digital electronics. I was learning how to repair a computer. And subsequently, I enrolled myself into Ngee Ann Polytechnic. From there, I opened up my own company to service a niche market in education.
There's a lot of free will involved in the utilization of this $500 SkillsFuture Credit. Can it address skills gap? I mean, how can we make sure that it's not used in such a way that ends up just being like, I don't know, a tick-tick attendance thing?
The idea is that SkillsFuture shouldn't just be in the hands of employers and the government. It's got to be in the hands of individuals, Singaporeans themselves. We are providing very strong subsidies to employers, and we're going to support them in developing training programs for their employees. We are developing manpower plans for every sector. But at the end of the day, we're also trying to change a culture. And to change a culture, every individual has to be thinking for themselves about what they're interested in, what are their strengths, what would they like to develop in themselves. And everyone has to feel that their learning doesn't stop when they left school or left IT, poly, or university, but it's learning through life. The idea of the SkillsFuture Credit, not just subsidy rates when you go for a course, but a credit with $500, and we'll top it up from time to time, is to get people thinking, how do I use this credit? It's with me already, how do I use it? And I've been quite encouraged because in the few weeks since we've launched the SkillsFuture Credit, people are already coming up with ideas. I met a homemaker, for instance, who was keen on learning clothes alteration because it's something which she felt she could do from home and in fact have a small business from home. I met someone who was switching from IT into social work. Involves doing some social work study because he was switching line. So people are coming up with their own ideas, but you wouldn't get the same effect if you merely had institutions and employers and government with an array of causes. By putting things in the hands of people, it gets everyone thinking, and that's what changes a culture.
But this is money from our coffers that could go to other areas for social good. Would there be any sort of conditions expecting people to actually make it into either some kind of business, some kind of profession?
So I think we've got to trust people, but we are obviously going to do some audit to make sure there's no abuse. So people don't sign up for causes and don't attend, for instance. And if we find that providers are actually encouraging people to sign up just for the sake of signing up, credits will be taken away from them. So that's normal. But we've got to allow for the free play. And the free play is actually individuals thinking for themselves, how do I want to develop myself through life? At different points in life, we all go through some renewal.
Right.
We either switch jobs or we realize we're interested in something quite different. Or even you're in the same job, you decide to take a different tack, to go deeper, or to focus more on the customer relation side after working most of your time in the back end. So all of us go through renewal in our lives.
In itself, I think it's a governmental innovation. I've never seen this done at that. Usually there are strings attached, but now it's like whatever you're passionate about, you probably would pay attention. And I think it's difficult to put safeguards to that. If you say you got to do this and you got to follow all these rules and regulations, I would walk away. But if you say, here's Skills Credit, go and do something that's close to your heart, then I'd pick something that I want to do.
How do I know if I want to apply for a specific job, which course should I be taking with respect to SkillsFuture?
So that's a really important point. We've got to give people more of a sense of what the real world is about. And what we're going to do is to develop a whole cohort of educational counselors, especially in our tertiary institutions, to give people a sense of what different jobs and occupations are really like. Internships help, attachments help, doing projects as part of your course that involves being out there in industry helps, but we need educational counselors. That starts young. Then during life, the question you ask, you're thinking of a new job, you're not sure what causes the employers will really recognize or which will really give you the skills you need. What we need are educational curators. If you go to a museum and you look at the pieces of art, they're not there accidentally or randomly. There's a curator who decided that this is the art that fits the theme or fits the moment, right? What we want is a group of people who specialize in mentoring others, putting together modules and courses that make sense for them, starting from their strengths, their interests, and designing for them a program of training and education that can lead them to where they want. The interesting thing about it is that we have a whole education industry today that front loads training. In fact, a lot of it is really about giving people a degree as quickly as possible when they leave school. What we have to do is to transform this industry so that it's about helping people throughout life organize their training, matching their interests, and also matching the needs of the market. So that's what we have to do to transform the education industry from one that's front-loaded to one that helps people through life to learn.
When I was a student, I didn't have someone to guide me. Until I went into university, I didn't even know what I want to major in. I know I love art. I want to do something related with art. I wasn't very sure about it. I think it's very important that there are more guidance for the students.
I think most people don't actually know what they're going to do when they're growing up. And if we could somehow encourage people to discover earlier on, rather when they enter university already, it'll be beneficial for the economy as well.
Kids these days, they just want to get past PSLE or get past O-levels. Their mind's not in what they want to do.
Education and the curation is so important here. For some of the hubs that we've seen that work well, New York, Silicon Valley, one of the reasons why these cities have really grown up is that the educators who are able to influence the students or masses really understand what the industry needs, where the industry should sharpen its focus on. For me personally, I guess one of my best classes that I took in university, the professor was actually ex-C-suite at JP Morgan, and thereby he was able to give me very good advice about what I should focus on and what I should hone before I entered the industry. That insight that practitioners can provide is really crucial.
So I think in every society you have different kinds of people. There will be a group of people who will, no matter what you say, no matter how convenient you make it for them, will not take up this SkillsFuture initiative and do something about it.
Fair enough. I think we can't force people to learn something that they're not interested in. But we have to ask ourselves, how do the best companies manage to excite their employees? You can tell the difference between companies. There's some companies where everyone is just brimming with it, and they're respected as well within the company. You can see it, you can sense it. And there's some other companies where people come to work, they do their job, but you don't sense the enthusiasm. There's a difference. I think management is critical. In every company, the task of top management and middle management is to make it a system where people can see progression in their careers based on actual performance and actual skills, not just based on their prior qualifications. And they must get respect within the company. That's within the company. And in society at large, we need the same thing. We need that very encouraging atmosphere where people are respected because they're trying to improve and because they've mastered something.